Again and again, yes.
Dr. Gilbert, how many cases are you seeing every day? How many are coming through the door of your hospital?
Well, make no mistake, this hospital behind me, Shifa Hospital, it's not run by Dr. Gilbert. It's run by a fantastic staff of Palestinian health workers of all types and professions, doctors, nurses, you know, lab technicians, paramedics, all sorts. And it could have been a state-of-the-art university hospital. The number of patients coming into Shifa, of course, is totally depending on the bombing. During the horror night of the Shaiya massacre, we received more than 400 patients. Of them, 47 were killed. But of course, for a hospital to accommodate 400 patients in a short time, it is a major undertaking.
Absolutely.
And I cannot really fully express my admiration
Absolutely.
for the Palestinian health workers.
Absolutely. And Dr. Gilbert, you know, our thanks and appreciation go out to you, but also to the wonderful staff out there who are doing a phenomenal job, who haven't been sleeping in days either. The question I've got for you, and everyone wants to, you know, has been asking, is what are the types of injuries that you and your team are seeing coming through your doors?
We see all sorts of war injuries. We see amputations. We see shrapnel wounds to the body. We see burns. We see, you know, all the consequences of an army using the most sophisticated, modern, dreadful weapons against a large civilian, basically totally unprotected population. Remember, the Palestinian people in Gaza, they have no shelters. They have no early warning systems. They have no, you know, operative civil defense. They are naked, and they can fly nowhere because they are incarcerated in this little piece of land by the same occupant who is bombing them. So this is really such a merciless and cowardice way of waging a warfare.
So,
at least the Palestinian fighters are fighting against tanks,
yeah,
the Israeli tanks. But the Israelis are fighting against children and women. And
Dr.
that
Gilbert,
is despicable, I think.
Dr. Gilbert, we understand that there is a critical lack of medical supplies at your hospital, but the other hospitals in the area. At what levels are these supplies? Can you give us an insight into what you currently don't have and how that is impacting the treatment of patients, of casualties?
The lack of equipment, the lack of modern medical equipment, disposable supplies of all types is a result of 7 years of total siege from the Israeli government. The siege of Gaza is the fundamental problem for all the hospitals. And the siege of Gaza is a collective punishment. Now there is another martyr coming. What we're lacking is sort of paramount. We're lacking everything from trolleys to instruments, to surgical instruments, to modern X-ray, to modern monitoring equipment, to drugs. We cannot do epidurals for the pregnant women who are going to deliver. We cannot do epidurals for postoperative pain because we don't have the needles, we don't have the local anesthetics. But make no mistake, the Palestinian health workers in Gaza and of course in Shifa, they don't follow any other ethical standards than in my hospital in Norway. So they improvise, they find solutions. But we must now demand from the international community that the hospitals and the civilians in Gaza are protected by the ICRC and the United Nations. I urge Ban Ki-moon, when he's coming here, to promise and to safeguard that all the hospitals and all the ambulances in Gaza are protected by international presence, observers, and that there are actually representatives for the international communities at the hospital gate every night, 7/24, because the Israelis are up to bombing more hospitals, as they did today when they bombed Al-Aqsa Hospital and killed 5 patients. This is unbearable.
Dr. Gilbert, I'm sure everyone around the world shares those sentiments. and it's great that you're there to see this for yourself and to be able to report back to the world. It is making a big difference, believe you me. Dr. Gilbert, just going back, I mean, tonight we're trying to raise as much funds as we can to help you, help the other hospitals to get the essential medical equipment supplies there. Can you tell us how long do you think the current supply levels will last?
It was a little bit hard to hear the full question, but I understand you asked me about how long we can sustain this situation.
Correct.
And the answer is the Palestinian sumud is endless. The Palestinian bravery and courage, as I see it every day, is unyielding. I don't think the Palestinian people are going to give in to an occupant and a brutal besieger that shows no mercy whatsoever, that shows no human feelings for their children and their people. I don't meet revenge feelings among the Palestinians. I meet people who say, let us have peace. We don't want to kill anybody. Let us have peace. We are being attacked. We are being killed. We have the right to defend ourselves, but we want peace. And to get peace, there must be a willingness from Israel to talk to the Palestinians without preconditions. As Mandibo said, Nelson Mandela, if you want peace, you have to talk to your enemies. From my little chair here in Gaza, I like to say that I urge the world leaders and your David Cameron to immediately make it possible to stop the bombing of Gaza, to lift the siege of Gaza, and to grant security, human security, and human rights for all Palestinians in Gaza. Gaza is bleeding. The rivers are flowing in the streets of Gaza with Palestinian blood. Stop the bombing, lift the siege, stop the murders, and, dear friends, pray for Gaza. We need that.
Dr. Mads, we have another question. We have a couple of questions for you. We know that you're busy and we don't want to detain you any longer. But with the current levels of medical supplies, how long can the hospital function, especially with the fact that electricity now is basically functioning at 20%?
I have no idea. The hospital leadership, which is working day and night, they have developed lists with the most critical needed items. And I understand that there are many international agencies trying now to sort of make it possible to get these supplies into the hospitals, not only Shifa, but also the other hospitals. But being under siege and being totally dependent on these Israeli governmental bodies, it is very difficult to understand when and how these supplies are going to get in. I don't understand why is it that international helicopters could not fly in these supplies directly to Shifa. Why is it that there is not a secure corridor which can safeguard trucks coming in with supplies?
Well, this is the great...
Again,
absolutely.
But again,
yes.
please, let me finish. But again, it is not a question of more syringes and more stitches and more medical equipment. It is a question of stopping the bombing and lifting the siege. That's the fundamental question now.
Absolutely. And Dr. Gilbert, absolutely. Everything we're trying to do is in parallel. So as well as trying to get the governments to understand that this needs to stop, we also want to make sure that we can support you, the people of Gaza, with their immediate needs as well, be it medical, be it food, be it water, etc. Now, I know that Interpal runs a medical recovery program for the disabled, for trauma victims, etc., etc. How important is this?
Very hard to hear you, but how important is what?
I know Interpal runs a recovery program for the disabled and for trauma patients. How important is that?
I'm sorry, I can't hear your question.
Okay, so Interpal, the charity, runs recovery programs for the disabled and for trauma patients, yes. How important is that work?
Whatever we do to collect and raise money for the children of Gaza, however much we do to amend the medical problems of Gaza, there is a fundamental challenge that will be the overwhelming challenge, and that is how can we stop producing all these horrible injuries, all these amputations,
Yes.
all these burns, that will need rehabilitation, that will need follow-up and treatment. And the question is extremely simple. It is to stop the bombing. It's extremely simple. This is not a natural disaster. This is not some, unpredictable earthquake. This is 100% man-made mass casualty by the Israeli government with support of the US government and I believe the British government.
Yes.
This is a shame. This is a historical shame. And the more people who can raise their voices and demand a stop to the bombing immediately, the quicker will we have a ceasefire and a stop in the bombing. And then, of course, starts the work of all the good charities for the children, for the handicapped, for the Palestinian society that needs to be rebuilt. But as the Palestinians say, if we are left alone, if we can manage our lives as we like, if we don't have the bombing and the occupation and the siege, we'll be fine. We'll develop, we'll manage our lives, and we can help others.
So, Dr. Gilbert, thank you very much for your time. We're all with you. You're not alone. You have the full support of the civilized world. Everyone is condemning what is happening, and we're going to work tirelessly to make sure that action is taken for this massacre to stop right now. We're going to help you and support you in every way possible. Thank you so much. To you, to all the staff, to everyone there who is literally safeguarding, protecting and getting people back to health again. Thank you so much for all you do. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. And first of all, a big thanks to the health workers in Shifa and the rest of Gaza and the fantastic Palestinian journalists.
Absolutely.
And don't forget, do mobilize political protest against the bombing and pray for Gaza.
You've got it. You've got it. Take care. Thank you. Well, so you've heard it for yourself, Dr. Mads Gilbert. He really made it very straightforward. He said that the situation ultimately, the bombing needs to stop. The aggression has to stop. But right now, levels of medical supplies, urgent things that are needed to treat the people coming in is at an all-time low. They don't have much time or left, really, to be able to function. They're kind of having to make do. But there's going to come a point where if they run out, then people coming in cannot be treated and there are going to be more deaths.